940 WROK.
Good morning, everybody. Dave Schmidt along with Matt Nestor and producer Tom Warner. A little hazy, cloudy day out there. I don't think it was snowing or anything, was it?
I didn't see any.
It did look yesterday a little bit.
Yeah, it did.
It was blowing. I went to Belvedere North. I went back Beloit Road there.
Mm-hmm.
Man, it was blowing pretty good across the old roads.
Yes,
a little bit of
especially
drift.
back in that area.
This week we had the seedings for the Class 3A and 4A and also the where they'll be playing at this week. And no surprises, especially in the Guilford Regional, because Auburn, clearly the number one choice. The big thing was to be the number 2 seed, and that went to Boylan, and they avoid Auburn until they would play in the finals.
Yeah, well, and the big thing is they'll get that bye. You know, the Hononegah will have to play Guilford. Which I think that's a game Hononegah should win, but they'll have to play a game before they, turn around and play another game there, and that's going to be tough, So that's really what the 2 seed was about. Auburn, though, is far and away the favorite in that regional. I don't see any resistance there when you look at it as far as for them. I mean, we always say anything can happen. Boylan, Hononegah, both, maybe not quite as good as they've been in years past, but those are 2 proud programs too. So they'll give Auburn a fight in a championship setting when they get there. But I don't see a way Auburn doesn't end up winning that.
Usually if you see a major upset, you'll see it from a conference foe because everybody knows each other so well, and maybe sometimes you wait till tournament to pull that rabbit out of your hat.
And that's the one thing is, Boylan's got Coach Mike Winters, who's a good coach. Hononegah has Mike Miller, who's a good coach. And, if they've got anything left in that back pocket, they're going to pull it out that night. And they'll probably have something that they're going to throw at Auburn. Of course, Brian Ott's a good coach, too. So I'm sure he'll find a way to respond. But yeah, that's the thing you look at. It'll be the third time. Whoever they end up playing will be the third time playing. And, good coaches who will have some sort of a plan, I'm sure. They'll get a couple of days to try to come up with something to throw at Auburn to try to throw them off. So, you never know. Anything can happen. But it would be... I would have to say it'd be one of the biggest upsets in this region
if they don't get out of the
region.
If
Auburn did not get out of there, yeah. In history, I think it'd be one of the biggest upsets in the region.
The one game, it's kind of interesting, will be Hononegah taking on Guilford. Guilford will be at home, and Guilford, I've seen them a lot because of the challenge. It's not that they haven't played well. They just haven't won a lot of the games. They've had a couple of close ones where they've lost. They played East tough pretty much all the year, and being at home, and Hononegah sometimes can go into that little scoring drought that they have.
Yeah, and that's been the biggest difference for them this year. I think defensively they're not really playing any worse than they normally do with that system. They have trouble making shots at times. The ball just won't go in the basket, and then that leads to a tough year when that happens.
And they're still pretty young.
Yeah, that they are. That's the other thing you got to remember. They're young. I think for them, I think Coach Miller would love nothing more than to get to that regional championship. I think he knows it'll be an uphill battle to win. But for a young team like that, just getting to that point, I think, where they could win 2 games in the tournament and then at least get a chance to play a tough Auburn team, even if they end up losing, I think for a young team, that would be a significant step forward.
And they've already they split with Boylan this year.
They did.
So if they can get to that game, it'll be the best out of 3 that way.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, Guilford's a nice place since they've redone it kind of like Auburn, the new seating stuff. There's lots of good seats. And Augie Toldo, he does a great job over there. I love him. He's just so laid back, and always glad to be seeing somebody. Have you been to their new park?
Yeah.
When you walk in that new park, you see all the trophy cases and all that stuff. You get to see those times when Mike Miller, it'd be kind of a homecoming for him because that's where they went back to state and lost in this champion. They got that runner-up trophy in there.
Yeah.
They even got a couple of Stateline Challenge trophies in the trophy case now.
They do. Yeah.
Thankful for that they have put those in the case. But it is a beautiful facility, especially that field house part of it.
Yeah, that's very nice what they've done to that.
So it'll be interesting. I love tournament because you never know. There's always some kind of upset somewhere along the road, and we'll be talking about it probably next week.
Well,
it'll be all over with already.
They got one more week.
They got one more week.
2 weeks until we get to that.
The boys 1A and 2A start this week.
Yeah, and I'm sure we'll be talking about that.
Yeah, okay. In the Huntley Regional, Jefferson gets the number 1 seed in the bye. The first games will be Huntley taking on Belvedere North, and then the 2 Crystal Lake schools, Prairie Ridge and Central, will play on the Monday night games. Crystal Lake South will get the winner of the Crystal Lake game. So they're basically... Other than Huntley, it's kind of like a Nick 10 bracket and a Fox Valley Conference bracket.
So you got a Crystal Lake bracket to be specific. They're going to have a mini Crystal Lake tournament. And then, you're right. It's almost going to be like a Nick 10 bracket there on the other side. I do think Jefferson should at least make the regional championship there. I know Huntley lost some people from last year's teams. They're not quite as good as they've been in the past.
They had that big D1 kid.
Yeah, they did, and he made a big difference on that team.
And he's playing well in D1.
Yes, he is, yeah. And then Belvedere North, I think that can be a feisty game for them against Huntley. I don't think it'd be a big shock if Belvedere North could pull that out. But whoever comes out of that, Jefferson should beat. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Crystal Lake teams, though. If Jefferson can get that regional final, that'll be an interesting game, I think. But I do think Jefferson earned that 1 seed there, and I think that they've got a good chance to move on.
And they are down Kevin TV-Ball. He has been disciplined for some actions. We're not going to talk about it, but he's not going to play with him. But that makes a difference with North. But they got a little freshman guard, Sebastian Gutierrez, I was telling you about.
Yeah.
He's quick. He's fun to watch, and he's just a freshman, and he does a nice job. And last night you saw some of those other guards have to step up. It might been okay for them to have that experience last night against Freeport.
Yeah, it helps to get some of those other people some experience here last week and this week as you get ready for a regional. And they're the one team that you look at there, though. I mean, they have nights where if they shoot well enough, they can be a dangerous team.
They got some big boys, too.
Yeah.
They got Birkenpass and they got Chris Myers. Those guys will bang with anybody.
Oh,
and they've been fun to watch. I've enjoyed Coach David Lohner's team this year a bunch. Class 3A, that's the one everybody's talking about. And who would have thought that Freeport would be in the mix? Freeport's reward for having a great year. We get to play Belvedere, who they split with. I think they beat them at home one time.
I think so, yeah. And that's what's made that regional so interesting, I think, is the way Freeport stepped up. At the beginning of the year, I think everybody would have looked at that and said, okay, well, we're going to look at another Belvedere Lutheran championship game, which we've had the last couple of years. And we may still end up with that, but Freeport really throws a wrench into that. And I think they would give fits to both Belvedere and Lutheran if they were to make it that far. Giovanni Alford is a dynamite player. I don't know if I'd call him the best player in that regional, but he's right there among them. And the way they're playing right now, and with some of those other guys like his brother stepping up,
Dimitri.
Yeah,
who he reminds me of a little bit. I mean, he's not up to that point yet, but he's a Fred Van Fleet type of player. He likes to do the assist.
Right.
He plays defense hard, and he's always looking for the open man. And when he needs to shoot, he shoots. So,
in basketball, more than any other sport, having the best player, gives you a leg up, regardless of what the rest of the team looks like. So I think Freeport's a really, really dangerous team. I do think ultimately, and we kind of talked about this in the last segment, I think maybe being at home for Belvedere is the difference between, winning and losing against Freeport. I think that'll be a close enough game where that might make all the difference.
And they won our best student section.
Yeah,
remember that?
Yeah, they did. Belvedere has so quietly this year.
They're good.
Just really turned into a good team. Early in the year, in the Thanksgiving tournament, and even really through Christmas, they were really struggling with consistency. They'd have flashes, even within one game, where they would look, so good for 2 quarters and then just kind of fall on their face in the second half, win or lose. Sometimes they won some games that they should have won bigger, or maybe lost some games they should have won. They've really become consistent.
And they've had different guys step up in the game.
And that's a dangerous thing about them, is they've got so many guys that can do it for them. That you can't go out there and just say, okay, we're going to try to shut this guy down or these 2 guys down, because they really got 5 guys out there that can score for them, and they bring guys off the bench that can do it. They're a dangerous team. This could be a year for them. Lutheran maybe not being quite as dominant as they've been in the past. They've still had a really good year, great record, and I think they are the favorite in that regional. But, Belvedere and Lutheran, they've played each other the last few years.
There's that connection between them with the Goosies and everything, too.
Maybe this is the year for Belvedere that, they've been more... They've had better years and more talented teams the last few years, but this might be the most consistent team they've had, which would probably be a shock if you saw them at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
And maybe this is a year where they can pull an upset.
Keep an eye on Rockford Christian. Rockford Christian has played well at points.
Yeah.
They've won some games. Nobody's looking at them, overlooking them. Mm-hmm. And they're the kind of team that can come up and just kind of sneak by you. So you can't overlook them. And they get one game on the floor before everybody else. Sometimes you get the jitters out.
Yeah, that always helps.
So Rockford Christian, you kind of look at them, and they've been kind of winning some games and being real quiet because they're in the East. You don't hear much about them. So.
Exactly. Yeah, that'll be an interesting matchup, too. I think that's just a dynamite regional, and you look at the ones for the area teams. I think that is just by far by far the best one. I think in 2A next week we'll have some good regionals.
I love tournament.
Yeah, I do too.
Got to go home and watch Hoosiers today. The outtakes. Hey, we're going to take a time out. We're going to talk some volleyball. Big news this week in volleyball. We'll have on Amanda Carlson, the new head volleyball coach for girls at Rockford Lutheran. You're listening to the Stateline Sports Hour right here on your favorite station, News Talk 1440 WROK.